Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning into episode 489 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. As always, whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, you are very, very welcome. And feel free to leave a comment or ask a question like somebody has done just now. Woozy says, hi all, I see we're potentially in store for the seasonal Persolaise burial of Joe Malone. Maybe you speak too soon, Woozy. Tina says, I'd rather have a slice of melon than Malone. Oh, very, very good. Very good. Sharon says, hello from Texas. And Otis says, I'd love for a Joe Malone release to impress me, but alas. Okay, very, very quickly, for the benefit of those of you watching live, this is the second of third videos. We are going to do this one very, very quickly and then come back with a collection released by a long-established brand. And I'm doing this in the interests of fairness. So this is brand new from Joe Malone London, as in the Estee Lauder owned Joe Malone company. And it's apparently composed by Anne Flipo, and it's called Hinoki and Cedarwood. And it is part of their Intense cologne range, which by most accounts is doing extremely well. But then I think everything that Joe Malone does, fares extremely well because the brand just seems to keep going from strength to strength, and I think remains one of the most popular brands in terms of sales in the UK, at least. Mika Shoemaker says, best part of this is the shirt. Well, we try. Thank you very much. I must say I am quite fond of this shirt as well. This shirt seems to have been popping up on my social media a lot. I think I've eaten a lot of ice cream wearing this shirt over the last few weeks. Let us have a spray of this one. Now, I said in the interests of fairness, I don't think I can hide the fact that I am not the world's biggest fan of Joe Malone, right? I think there are too many videos and too many blog posts out there which make my general views of the brand quite clear. I did a Substack a few weeks ago about their, what was it? Was it called Orange Marmalade? Which I think was a reissue of something from a couple of years ago, which had a different name, but they called it Orange Marmalade because they tied it in with Paddington. I made my views on that very, very clear in the Substack as well. So if ever a Joe Malone comes along that doesn't make me want to run for the hills, then I kind of feel I ought to announce that, as I say, in the interests of fairness. And this one, based on my initial sniff, did not make me run for the hills, which may officially place it in the category of one of the best Joe Malone scents ever made. So this is, as I say, Hinoki and Cedarwood. Notice I'm not cringing and rapidly approaching death. I'm not going to go over my general problems with Joe Malone, and I stress the word general because there are a few individual scents here and there that I think are all right, but generally speaking, I have a problem with the brand. Gavin says, is it that they make you want to run for the hills, or are they just meh? Good point. Maybe the scents are more meh than anything else, but overall the whole aesthetic and the way they push it and the layering thing and the advertising campaigns do make me want to run for the hills. And I think what also kind of makes me want to run to the other side of the hills, if we can kind of weirdly continue with the analogy, is that there are other brands out there that do the whole Joe Malone shtick better. There is nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong, with being the sort of person who doesn't want to wear loud scents, that doesn't want to wear especially diffusive scents, that doesn't want to wear especially challenging scents, and just wants to wear something that comes across as kind of vaguely naturalistic and pleasant. That is absolutely the card that Joe Malone plays, but there are brands out there that do it so much better because you can create naturalistic, convincing, pleasant smelling blends that don't have to rewrite perfumery, reinvent the perfumery wheel. Then they're never going to be the sorts of scents that I particularly admire. But when Joe Malone tried, like the blurb that they put with the orange marmalade, the claims that they made about it were just so unconvincing. The scent itself was just really, really crass and crude. Anyway, we're going on too much about the other one. So the Hinoki and Cedarwood it's not great. Okay, it's never going to be a contender for one of my top 10 scents of the year, but it's interesting as a kind of Joe Malone-ish, light, translucent take on a sort of 70s fougere type thing, because it's quite heavy on aromatic notes and pine-like notes, and I suppose that's what comes through with whatever is meant to represent the hinoki. My knowledge of botany is very, very poor, but hinoki, I believe, is a Japanese cypress tree, and the oil that is extracted from it is quite pine-like, and that does come across there. And cedarwood, well, cedarwood means all sorts of things in perfumery nowadays. Usually cedarwood means isoe super, but it manifests itself as a kind of generic, translucent, pleasant, inoffensive, pale, gentle woodiness. That kind of generic masculine woodiness. And that is what you get here. And if there is anything that is adding a touch more interest, it is this inclusion of somewhat more bitter, more peppery sorts of herbs. Like there's something that to me feels a little bit like maybe clary sage, something greener, sharper, maybe almost like a hint of artemisia, something like that. And I think that's what lifts it away a few notches above the usual kind of Joe Malone blandness. I think that's the word that I would use to describe a lot of the Joe Malone output is bland. And I suppose blandness in a way in perfumery does make me run for the hills, to go back to what we were saying, Gavin. What are folks saying about this one? Anna Wasser says, I think Perfumer H does the naturalistic thing far better than Joe Malone. Yes, although a lot more expensively. Oriana says, this sounds exactly like BTSO's Hinoki Shower to a T. Interesting. Ryan X says, I also await your opinion of the Les Indemodables Oud. Yes, I've heard about it, but I haven't smelt it. Gavin says, I would expect a Duchefort Mark Buxton type scent with those highlighted ingredients. Yeah, but nowhere near as interesting as a Duchefort. There's no incense here. There are no layers. There's nothing to kind of really, really sink your nose into. Rachel says, I like Joe Malone, I think, more than others. That's absolutely fine. You carry on. Tracy says, this sounds like it is hardcore for JM. Well, yes, I suppose it is. For JM, it probably is a bit hardcore. And it'd be interesting to see how it does. Kerry says, haven't tried Perfumer Age. Don't mind Miller Harris. A few of Orche and Blue for that style. Gichunk says, hello from Italy. Buonasera. Here, Joe Malone is so overrated and their physical shops are so empty. That means a lot. Angela says, what does it mean that I'm finally joining a live stream again? Hello, after an age, and it's a Joe Malone. I don't know what it means, but I'm glad you're here. Inoffensive, says Alex, is not really an invitation for me to try a perfume. Sounds rather forgettable, says Polish Cheap Car. Yeah, I mean, it is completely forgettable. I mean, it's absolutely fine and it's completely forgettable. And Comme des Garçons, says Gavin, does a Hinoki scented Liberty. Yes, and I haven't smelt their Hinoki for a while. That would have been an interesting comparison. I'll just read the tiny little bit of a blurb that I have from the brand, and then we'll do pre-spray blotter, and then we'll move on. Drawing inspiration from distant lands and the finest ingredients. Oh, let me tell you something about ingredients. And the finest ingredients, this scent is a perfect complement to your autumnal fragrance wardrobe. The scent itself is an immersive fusion of clean aromatic notes and woody intensity with a powerful trail of elegant cedarwood and hinoki. It's an intensely fresh and distinctive scent which is inspired by the Japanese ritual of forest bathing. And that doesn't mean giving the trees a bath, okay? And is the perfect woody scent for colder autumnal months. Intensely fresh. I don't know about intensely fresh. Oh, Evan, thank you very much. That's very kind. Will you be at Scent Explore? Oh, I have no plans to be at Scent Explore. I would love to be there, and to give Max his due, he very, very, very kindly has invited me the last few years, but that time of year is just so terrible for me to be doing any traveling. But I hear nothing but good things about Scent Explore. Cheers from Manhattan Beach. Thank you so much, Evan. Love the lives. Favorite of the Le Gemme line. Oh, well, Valcar. Easily. Absolutely easily. Ingredients. This has nothing to do with this, and it has nothing to do with the brand, but I was at a branch of is it the cosmetics company store? You know, the sort of outlet version of Estee Lauder that you get in the UK and in a few other countries. Certainly, you get them in Italy as well. And I heard somebody being served at the counter, and they were buying a few Jo Malone sets. And I mean, there are so many times where I just kind of think, no, just bite your tongue. Don't say anything. It is not your place to say anything. Just walk away, walk away. But the sales assistant was singing the praises of Jo Malone, basically, you know, telling these people that they'd made a good choice, which is fair enough. And she says, oh yeah, it's such an amazing brand because, you know, like what's wonderful about it is that all of the ingredients that go into their perfumes are made in England. And, you know, we can say what we think, or we can think what we like about the brands, but I would be really, really, really shocked if in any training that sales assistant was given, somebody from Estee Lauder or Jo Malone had actually said that to her, because, you know, the brands don't outright lie. It reminds me of a time years ago when I was at the John Lewis in Cambridge. And actually, this was to me, the person at the Dior counter told me that what makes Dior perfumes really special is that all of the ingredients are grown on Francois Demachy's personal vineyard. And again, I didn't have the heart to sort of try unpacking this, and I just sort of smiled and sort of went, oh, right, yeah, of course, yes. So yeah, pre-spread and collected by unicorns, Oriana, yes, of course. And pre-sprayed Hinoki. Here we go. So this was sprayed about 3 hours ago. Yeah, it is now full of the sorts of synthetics that you expect from these sorts of scents. So there's a kind of synthetic stand-in for cedar, and also something that's got a kind of fizzy, musky quality to it. It reminds me of the one time I smelt the material called, I think it's called Crystal Fizz, but I forget which of the compounding houses it comes from. But it's that kind of thing. Really quite synthetic, quite thin. I suppose it's that element that they're thinking pushes the freshness. Yeah, I hate the expression "it is what it is," but it is what it is, and what it is a Jo Malone scent, maybe a notch or two above the rest. Woozy says, well, it seems like this has turned into a Jo Malone burial. It's one of the better ones. My final word. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for the comments, and we will be back with the new quintet from, you've guessed it already, Diptyque. See you in a few minutes. Bye now.